go.
Yo, good day, and welcome to another episode of the RoadFS Detail Bookie Podcast, where every week we get together with amazing business owners, vendors, suppliers, all with the goal of helping you grow your business. I am, as you know, Jody Cedric, and
today I'm Rod Pusey.
I think you're still Rod Pusey, still playing the role of Rod Pusey.
Tony Kiger, Tiger.
I know, Tony Kiger, man. Welcome.
The thing about this is it should have been like, this is going to be a great podcast.
A great
I didn't
podcast.
Want to go there, but then now that I see the picture of the tiger behind you.
No, dude, like, he's all in.
Yeah, and actually on this shirt, I don't know if you can read it, it says Eye of the Kiger on there. So
oh my God.
Eye of the Kiger.
That's
love
awesome.
That. And that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, because as we were talking about before the show, that I kind of follow you on Facebook. I see your posts, and you know, the thing that every time I go to your page, I always see the big speedboat that's all wrapped like a tiger. Everything's Eye of the Kiger. And I just love the branding. It's just memorable. Even if I don't know you, I know your brand. And so I wanted to talk about building a strong brand today. But before we do that, give us a little history of how you got into automotive detailing.
Oh boy, where to start? So I'll start with, I'm 41 years old. I've been detailing for over 20 years now. Started as, the garage warrior, went into dealerships, worked in independent shops, anywhere from your vintage cars to your hypercars and classics, from disassembling to do the, in my opinion, the full detail is being able to disassemble, correct, and then reassemble. That's kind of what I got known for, which is where the nickname Eye of the Kiger kind of originated from, was the attention to detail. And then the last, we'll say 7 to 8 years, I've been doing paint protection film, as well as ceramic coatings since their inception. Helped develop and test multiple coatings over the years, as well as created a Facebook group that really isn't active nowadays, but is a Realm of Coatings, which was designed to aid installers on application of coatings versus just a manufacturer telling you that it was installer error. Well, if it was, how do I go about fixing that?
Yeah,
right.
Then eventually becoming a sales rep, and I'm now dual positions. I'm a sales rep for Huper Optik, Autobahn, and Edge, as well as the director of trainings for the 3 brands.
Dude, you're a busy guy.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's a busy.
So I want to jump right into which is controversial in some people's eyes, but that is the disassembly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about.
You were going there.
Yeah, you knew it. Let's talk about that process, because that is such a controversial issue, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And understand my position on it. It's not if you know what you're doing, but when you don't, it's totally controversial. So explain what you mean by disassembly and who should and who shouldn't be disassembling things.
Well, first of all, I would start with, it's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. There is liability associated with it, and you have to have proper tools and knowledge to be able to do so. I was fortunate enough that back in the day, the shop that I worked in, we had specialty tools, and we had resources to be able to look up and see how to properly disassemble certain vehicles. Now, granted, on like the vintage cars, those ones we have to take extreme caution with. Whether it's a screw that's aged or a plastic trim or even a tab that is very brittle, those are things that we look up and see, okay, is this something that we can get our hands on easily, readily available to replace in case it does break? Or is it something that could potentially break that we cannot replace? In that case, we're not going to remove that.
Right.
Those vehicles back in the day were of such value that if we did break something, you're literally devaluing the car potentially hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a large liability associated with it.
Yeah. So let's talk about two. I want to contrast those two. Let's take a couple of high-end cars. Let's say 2025 GT3 Porsche. And when you say disassembly, let's talk about what you would take off of that car if we were going to do PPF ceramic coating?
Yeah, so I mean, on that car, first of all, doing a full paint correction. So therefore, whether it's headlights, mirrors, taillights, wing, any of the trim pieces that can come off of it. Uh, I used to work in-house of Porsche. So I was a
Yep.
subcontractor that exclusively worked in-house. I had 3 lifts dedicated to me for paint corrections, coatings, PPF, and tint. So I would disassemble them on a daily basis because especially with paint protection film, we're trying to wrap as many edges as possible. Even doing a paint correction, taillights from transport, get marring, scratches, things like that from the factory that the detailers, or at least how the manufacturer states it is, if there is a pending defect after manufacturing and production, then that is solely up to the dealership's detailer to then correct that. Now, we know nowadays that generally that's not necessarily the case. There's a great undereducation when it comes to the dealership mentality, as well as the cost perspective of the dealership paying a detailer proper wages to be able to then do the job adequately.
Yeah.
So
when you're talking about like PPF specifically, right? Like, and I picked that car just because of knowledge of those cars. But like you said, the fixed wing, you can it virtually is impossible to wrap around that. You're going to have a cut, or you're going to have a hard time clearing around that. So taking off the wing, which is just a matter of a few bolts, but in a lot of people's mind, that's a lot of work, right? Removing badges. The badge on the front end of the car is highly removable, very easy to take off. But the ones on the back,
2 8mm,
you're talking about, dental floss type of situation.
So, well, and the rear badge can be challenging depending on what the script may be. It could be just 911, or it could be Carrera 4 GTS, and it's all in script. So it's very time consuming to not necessarily remove it, but to readhesive it and reapply it, if not just replacing it altogether.
Right. And the same thing when you're talking about removing wheels. That car in particular, you're going to have ceramic brake rotors. And so what products you use, first off, anybody that's touching a vehicle of that end needs to know what the materials they're used on the vehicle are, because you could have, again, ceramic brake rotors. Just look up what a ceramic brake rotor for 2025 GT3 Porsche costs, and you should not be spraying chemicals on that. So
you're like 20,000 a wheel.
You're working on the one that the one that I think is probably the most, in my mind, controversial is removing the seats if you're doing the interior, because you're unhooking some safety devices, you're unhooking wires. There's potential to break the clips and things like that. If you break the clip on that wire, it's replacing the harness or taking it to a certified shop that can actually just go replace the clip. So these are not things you should jump into lightly. If you don't know what you're doing, the recommendation is don't do it.
Well, and the biggest factor when it comes to seats is the actual bolts themselves. Some of these are stretch bolts. They're one-time use bolts. So if you are reusing those to reinstall a seat, there's a huge liability there that now is on your shop. So if you're listing that you're removing something, you need to know, can this bolt be reused? Is it a retorquable bolt? Before putting it back together. I mean, we had ran across this years and years ago, and I actually printed off a chart stating, which bolts, so you can actually, pull the bolt out, take a look at it, and identify, is it a reusable bolt or is it a replaceable bolt at that point?
Right.
And I mean, guys, have insurance. Like,
you've got to have
must-have.
You got to have massive insurance for this, because that's the biggest thing there is whether you actually make a mistake or not. If you were the last one that touched it, you're the first one that gets hit. So let's contrast that now. Let's go where we got a 69 Chevelle all original, right? So we're talking the reason I say all original, Tony's going to know, but for those of you that don't know, all original is that every single bolt has never been taken off that car. This is all original, never been touched, never been painted. That kind of a situation is what Tony's talking about. You got to be careful, because just taking a bolt off can devalue that vehicle. Jody and I were at Peterson Auto Museum a couple weeks ago, and we got to see the restored it's the Bullet stunt car. There's two of them. The one that was actually driven in the movie when they did the stunts, this is that one. It had been missing for 50 years, and he restored it to movie condition, but the level of restoration on the engine itself was immaculate.
Yeah,
you had the stamps in the right places, the right stickers and everything. So in those situations, explain the liability of just doing something as simple as, I'm going to open the hood and pressure wash this, and then the sticker goes flying off.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, we had a lot of cars come from Shelby America. Yeah. And a lot of them had signatures from Carroll Shelby on there, and they were usually on the dash or in the engine bay. And if you were to take a degreaser or a solvent and wipe over that trim piece that may have had that signature on there, you could literally wipe off that signature and devalue the vehicle. It's very, very simple to do. So you have to be cautious, take precautions, cover up what needs to be, pay attention to what chemicals you're actually using. Is it overly aggressive? Is it just enough to get the job done? Is it dilutable? You got to know how they react to the finishes. I mean, we took 4 days to patina brand new Cobra wheels to get them to match 1964 original wheels, because he had 2 that were damaged. So we're trying to get replacements, but patina it enough so that it matches the original ones without overdoing it or causing it to continue to age faster than the original wheels looked. So it was a chemistry project at that point. So
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and we ran into some situations like that where we were working on an airplane that under the front landing gear in the doors, every one of the NASA astronauts that had flown on this plane had signed their names.
Comet, baby.
And so, like you're saying, that is like a piece of history.
Oh yeah.
And that one panel, whenever somebody's detailing that, you have to tape that off and make sure that it's not even getting touched. You don't even want to put any kind of an APC or a mild anything on that, because it's just, you cannot recreate some of this stuff. So I think that's one of those things where people can get scared off of that. And it's not something you jump into on day one. You've got to have the years behind you. And I always tell people, if you don't have some kind of a mechanical background where you have some credential that says you're able to remove bolts, don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I came from the Lego lifestyle, so building things and disassembling comes a little bit more natural to me. I mean, I also went to college for architecture and civil engineering before going into computer programming, running out of funding, and becoming a detailer. So, but I've definitely always been hands-on, which is definitely useful in this industry.
So I have a question. You're the director of trainings. What are in your trainings? What do you see the biggest gap is for detailers that are coming to either be certified in PPF or learn how to disassemble and reassemble? What's the biggest gap that you see as a trainer?
So, I mean, we offer a bunch of different trainings, not even just detailing. So we specialize in architectural window film, automotive window film, ceramic coatings, paint protection film, and paint corrections. So actually last week, I was just at RoadFS USA, and we were hosting a class out there.
Yeah, saw that.
But it can kind of go either way. I mean, there's the disconnect of, I have a polisher, I have pads and abrasives, I'm just going to put it to paint and hope that I can yield a good finish. But the lack of education on how to properly use that pad with that machine and that abrasive, I find a lot of detailers just kind of winging it and hoping that the results yield something positive. And in reality, doing a test spot, which nobody really wants to do, but dialing that in so that you're not wasting your time trying to correct an entire vehicle, and you're just constantly changing from one compound to another, or one pad size to another, or one density pad to another, or speed variations. It's just, they're throwing too many variables in when they just need to dial it back and figure out one process. And then you can make slight changes, not drastic changes. And just the confidence level. I mean, with the RoadFS and Fit training classes, we start with sanding a finish. And that's, to a new detailer, that's the most terrifying thing generally, is, oh my God, I don't want to sand this finish. And we don't recommend that on OEM finishes nowadays because paints are getting thinner and thinner.
Right.
But it's something that you should still know how to do just in case you ever have to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that to me, a couple of the biggest mistakes people make is, like you're saying, when they're not literally doing a test spot, is also, what is the expectations? What are you doing for that car? Is it a concourse car, or is it something where the person is just paying you to take out that first layer of haze and they just want it to look as, good, and they're paying you a certain amount of money? There's so many people that will frown upon a one-step correction but it all really depends on the expectations of the end person, right? I mean, we're talking about earlier some really high-end cars. There's a lot more expectation, I think, when somebody brings in a $300,000 car, but not necessarily. I've flown to Washington to do a Porsche, and the expectation there was very minimal. I mean, I had a bag of stuff, man, because my expectation was Porsche red, all the way down. No, this person was just like, I just wanted to get, it's the slaps and
gloss enhancement,
So it was literally, it was like you said, it was like, okay, I'm going to dial this back. That first step, there's not going to be any wool involved. There's not going to be any microfiber. It's this dense of a foam, a single compound that diminishes nicely and turns into a polish. And, when we're done, it was literally not even a ceramic. It was just a spray, a topper basically to give it some gloss. And this person was over the moon. I mean, taking pictures and what's the secret sauce? And I got to tell all my friends. So I think that level of understanding is where I think the first mistake is. And again, the second mistake,
Well, and that's, I mean, I'm at fault for that as well. When I first started detailing, the expectation was to do the best that we could do on every single vehicle so that we could then post this drastic transition from a totally trashed vehicle to what looks better than brand new. And of course, that's what we like to see online. So that's what we try to work towards and post. But in reality, we're generally exceeding the customer's expectations for the price point that we're charging them. And we're taking the brunt of that load and realizing that, hey, I'm really not making what I should be making. And that's the problem of, justifying what services you're offering and then doing what the customer is asking of. And yes, you can go a little above and beyond, but don't go so much that you're literally putting yourself in debt because of the time frames required to do the work.
Yeah, and I also think it's a lot of it is individual training, if you will, or experimenting. So I'll use myself as an example. A couple of years ago, we did a series on what it costs to do a full detail 3-step correction. And I went and did my own vehicle, right? It's a 2007 Chevy pickup. It's Victory Red. So, if you flick it with your fingernail, you're going to chip the paint. Yep. And this truck had never, ever been detailed. And so I took it to a couple shops. We got some quotes here locally of what it would cost. And to my surprise, both, and these are two seriously opposite ends of town, they were really close to the same estimate. And then I went ahead and I did it myself. And I did on video, what I did is I started out by wet sanding, right? And I wet sanded with 2 different grits of sandpaper, wool pad, followed with foam, full 3-step with sanding. And then on the next panel next to it, I didn't sand and I cut the wool out and I just did with a dense foam for the first step. And I got the same results.
In half the time.
Partially because it's a Chevy Victory Red from 2007, and you can't. I mean, the old adage of you can't polish a turd pretty much comes into play. But I got the same result, and so the rest of that truck, and it's a 3/4 ton 4-door truck. This is not something that was going to get knocked out in an hour. The rest of that truck, I saved myself so much time and money because I didn't go through the process of wet sanding it twice and hitting it with wool and then with foam and then with this and then with that. No, knocked it out with a two-step, and I was done. And so I think that kind of experimentation and that knowledge comes into play, right? I've seen so many people struggle with, they think it's the color. It's not the color. The color's underneath. So people are like, I got this Chevy truck in here and it's black and it's kicking my ass. And I'm like, it's not the black that's kicking your ass. It's yourself.
Well, and that's the thing where people toss around the term a color correction. Well, we're not really doing a color correction unless we're working with single stage paint in most cases. Now, granted, if it's a tinted clear coat, then technically yes, but we're dealing with clear coat. So it doesn't matter what color it is, we're correcting the clear coat or refining it so we get the most amount of clarity through it. So now the difference would be the hardness. Is it very soft? Is it medium? Or is it a ceramic clear like Mercedes offers? That's going to be the big challenge of figuring out how to be able to refine it out. So obviously with a softer clear coat, we can cut a defect out, but it's finishing down that takes longer versus a harder clear coat. Cutting out a deep scratch, you're going to have to go more aggressive, but finishing it's very simple. So
yeah, exactly. And I think that's just I'll throw a unsolicited shout out to Bob Rossman and his history of paint. I mean, he goes back into lacquers and emerons and things like that, but understanding what you're dealing with. Are you dealing with a single stage? Are you dealing with a waterborne, which is just a waterborne paint with a regular clear on top of it? Are you dealing with a
No, might have lost you guys there. I think I lost you guys.
Continue talking about that.
There's
Tony's
Tony.
back.
There it is.
Tony, there you go.
There he's back.
I don't know if that was our end or your end, but that's okay. We're back. That's all that matters. So we've talked a lot about paint correction and disassembly, reassembly. Do you find that there's a strong opportunity in play for PPF as opposed to ceramic coating?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you're buying a brand new vehicle, and it doesn't matter if it's a Honda or McLaren or anything in between, there are certain individuals where, whether it's a $5,000 car or a $500,000 car, that's the most expensive car or it's the most valued vehicle to them. So the misconception is that somebody that owns a less expensive vehicle doesn't care as much about that vehicle, when in reality, that's not necessarily the case. So whether it's a ceramic coating or PPF, it can be offered to anybody. Now, price point wise, obviously ceramic coating is going to be less expensive. Granted, that's also based off of whatever kind of a refinement needs to be done to the vehicle, if there is one, before applying a coating to it. Now, when it comes to PPF, that is solely created to stop from rock prevention. It's to stop and keep the finish looking as durable and refined as possible. I mean, we're talking either an 8 all the way up to 10, or some companies have a 12 mil thick film. Obviously, the thicker it is, the more difficult it is to apply. But in our company, we have 8 and 10 mil thick films. We offer a lifetime warranty. They have ceramic coatings infused in them. So we're getting kind of the best of both worlds in regards to just applying a ceramic coating to a finish.
And I think that PPFs offer, it's a totally different mindset than a ceramic. Ceramics are there for protection, but mostly, it's an enhancement, or it protects the finish as far as looking good. If you're expecting a ceramic coating to stop a rock, you're dreaming. It's not going to happen. Whereas PPF is, it's night and day. It is, the small rocks you're going to get, the sandblasting because, you switched lanes and somebody in front of you had junk on their tires. Those are actually for people, in my mind, that drive the cars and are concerned about getting the finish damaged. And
one of the ones that we see a lot, that I get asked a lot about, is if it's a factory matte painted vehicle, which is texture clear coat to create the matte finish. And if you ceramic coat that matte finish and you then later decide you want to apply PPF to it, good luck. We can't abrade away that coating because it's within the texture of the clear coat.
Right.
So you might be able to get it to stick. Depends on the coating that was applied and the age of the coating. Maybe the hydrophobics have fallen off enough that it's not performing as well and you can get it to stick. But from a manufacturer standpoint, if somebody applies a coating to a vehicle and then they go to apply PPF on top of it, it's not a warrantyable item at that point. You're putting a product that's going to hinder adhesive from actually being able to bond to clear coat. So if it fails, it's because it wasn't prepped correctly. So in that regard, we would recommend abrading away or polishing at least the coating so that we can actually have film be able to bond or adhere to it.
Right. And then again, like you said, if you're talking about a matte finish on a vehicle, if it's actually a matte finish that came from a factory and it's paint, you've got to be careful with that polishing too, because you're going to have a difference between the areas that are polished and aren't.
Well, I mean, I get a question as I have a matte finished vehicle, factory matte clear. Does your film match the factory finish? And I say, well, is it 0 miles? Is it 5 miles? Is it 500 or 5,000 miles? Because that is all dependent on how much abrasion that clear coat has taken as to if the film would match or not match. Even if you were to do a full front or a track pack where we include rockers, A-pillars and so forth, you might only do that section. But if the rest of the vehicle isn't also protected with paint protection film, you will see the rest of the vehicle change pigment until you pull the film off, and you're going to notice a drastic change because part of it has been protected and the other sections of it have actually taken the wear and tear and the sheen has changed. So
yeah, for sure. And I think that's another thing is just understanding that that's the same with anything, right? If you have a vehicle that's been sitting in the sun, I got a gold Honda Accord that sits in the sun 24/7 versus that exact same vehicle that's in the garage, you've got a difference in that paint. They're exposed to different elements. They're different. So you've got to really look at a history of that vehicle. And I think that's what's important is you got to get to know each vehicle that you're working on. One of the examples I love is Jody's got a really nice boat, but it had sat outside. And so the one side was
especially the one side
completely just oxidized. And, it
not anymore,
but it took a different effort on that one side than the other one for sure. But it's understanding that at the end of the day, you want them to match, right? So, if this side over here is completely oxidized, again, where you're dealing with gel coat, you're hammering on that. Whereas this side, you're not going to do that because you're going to get a difference. This side's the finish is actually duller. And if you want them to match, you're going to have to do a different process on those two sides. So.
Well, and that's the biggest thing when we see like partial hoods done with paint protection film, and it's 5 or 10 years later, and they decide, the film's cracked or something, and they go to remove it, and it's like, wow, this is 2 totally different colors. And they're like, well, can you polish it out? It's like at that point, no, that's a repaint.
No. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I've only ever done 2 partials, and I don't even offer it. If I'm going to do it, I'm doing a full hood, because I've also seen on very soft paint, for instance, Alfa Romeo 4C, where it had a partial on the hood. The hood is tiny anyways, but it had a partial, and they wanted it removed. Well, it had been several years in the Vegas heat, and what happens when you have film on one section versus no film, we were able to get the color to match, but there was a defined line. And they said, can you get rid of that line? And I was like, no. Even if we try to sand it, what happens is that's a high spot in the paint from the expansion and contraction that's resisted right at that edge. And if we sand that, you're just going to see primer under it because it's now a raised section of paint. There's nothing to do aside from repaint that hood at that point.
Right. Or try to line up a partial exactly on that line and just continue.
That too.
There's that. I think the issue is, and this was a big thing, right? When PPFs first came out, everybody had a partial. It was that front strip of the car, and it was like, hey, we can put this little strip. And I have that on a motorhome, and it's horrible. I'm like, it's this little tiny 4-inch strip on the hood, and I'm like, that's never coming off, because if I take that off, first off, it'll probably pull paint, and second, it's going to be this big ugly line across there.
Yeah.
So I think that as the products go into more, they advance, we're going to we got better products. We've got stuff that is, there's products out there like there's a product called Peel Clear, which we did a demo on YouTube. I did it.
Well, you did most.
Somebody made a comment, which I was like, yeah, I get it. They said, oh, that's just plastic dip with clear coat over the top. And I'm like,
I mean, it's definitely a more advanced product than what it used to be. My personal opinion, it still has a ways to go. There's still limitations with any product, whether it's sprayed or hand applied, if it's layerable or not. And then if there's different pigments being added to it, whether it's colored film or paint-based sprays, there's always going to be a limitation, and it's just making sure that we're not overhyping a product beyond what it's actually capable of. I mean, that's with any manufacturer in the industry. We're always trying to build that hype, but it's being realistic about what it can actually do. That's the main focus.
And I think that's really evident when you look at wraps, the big burst in. I mean, there's a huge, oh my God, I'm going to wrap my vehicle. And then people will look at it, and the biggest complaint I've heard is, well, it's not as shiny as paint. I'm like, well because it's a sheet of vinyl. You can do so many things, but you cannot. It's not going to look like paint. It's not paint. So it's a different thing.
That's crazy.
So let's go back to, you started out, you mentioned like a lot of people that you went into detailing because, that's you had gone to college to do something else. You decided to go into detailing to earn money. If you right now today, 2026, somebody came to you just starting out a detailing business, what would your advice be to them after you've been in the industry for this long?
Take a training class, first of all. If you're not experienced in this field and you're not sure if you want to make this your career, go and take a training class. Even within our window film side, we have people that are, they want to branch out and add an additional service. And detailing may be that additional service that they're looking at. Take a training class. Don't just take a customer's vehicle in and think that you have all the tools that you need, and then you find out, oops, I don't, or I made a mistake. How do I fix this? Or I damaged the paint. That could be a lawsuit. It could be a repaint. There's so many different options, and there's classes out there. Now, the thing that I run into, being especially the director of trainings, is there are so many trainings being offered right now by individuals that probably shouldn't be training, but it's just that slow season. So let me get a money grab, fill the slot while I don't have a car coming in. Definitely do your research before you go and take a training class. There's a lot of manufacturers that have been in this business for a long time that offer dedicated trainings with their products, whether you choose to use it or not. It's up to you. But make sure they actually can offer a proper training. So,
I think that is so critically important, especially after a conversation I had with a new detailer coming into the industry yesterday. And the first thing he did was he went out and bought an extractor. And then, he bought some PNS products. He brought some Coach Chemi products. And he's just really like, oh, I'll try this and I'll try that. And I had to slow him down. I'm like, look, you really ought to find a training because, he was talking to me about the PNS interior line and Terminator and Carpet Bomber. And I'm like, whoa, dude, you're completely applying that all wrong. So let's slow down. I've been to several trainings. This is what I recommend, based on the trainings that I've been to. But dude, you're in Florida. There are plenty of training opportunities. I highly, highly recommend because, just experimenting on somebody's car is not the right way to jump into business and build a strong image, a strong brand, build a strong customer following. So talk about that, not only going to trainings, how would you approach building a strong brand?
It depends on if you're going to try to do it solely on your own. One of the biggest things that I ask our dealers that we have all over the U.S. and internationally is, do you have a website? and most of them just rely on either Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. But as we've noticed over the last 2 years, and it's generally right around one of our dealer conferences, is Facebook or Meta crashes for a day or most of a day. And my question is to them, okay, who solely relies on these forms of social media to run your business? Because if those just crashed and you have somebody trying to answer the phone at your shop, that your phone number isn't listed on a Google Ads or even a website, you have no business coming in unless it's strictly word of mouth from a previous customer. So making sure that you do have some form of marketing online, whether it's a website, whether it's a social media post or something like that, but and then branding it yourself, not just basing it off of the polisher that I use or the chemical company that I use or the film manufacturer that I use.
Right.
Now, yes, we can help support you, which is what we're here to do. However, you need to build your name brand, and that's getting your name out there, presenting it in a professional manner. The amount of times that I get leads and I literally go and look them up on social media, because I'm going to do that as a rep to see what's your status, how are you portraying yourself online? And wow, guys, like, calm it down online, or at least have a professional page. Like, if your personal page is one thing, but your business page should be professional. And it can be a bit shocking.
Yeah, and I actually go a step further than that. I'm like, if you're going to be that wild, crazy person in your personal life, you need to have an alias, because people are going to go look at your personal page. And if my business page looks great and then my personal page is over the top, that people look at it. And I honestly, I mean, I know we're a technology company, so we're into tech. But when I go look at somebody and they don't even have a website, I'm like, are you really even trying? Because
and that brings up the question of, like, are you really in this business, or is this just a hobby that you're trying to work in? And I mean, when, like, with Autobahn, we have territories for our dealers, and this territory is an agreement that we will not bring in another dealer within that area. This is exclusive to you. Now, within that, we also have expectations set forth that is in a contract, that is an agreement. But for us to be able to provide you a territory, like, there's a certain level of professionalism that is required with that, or not necessarily required, but expected of you in that regard. And
that's just how it is. People feeling I was having this conversation with one of my kids this week, and they were worried about something being online. And I said, if you don't understand that you can go Google your name, there's stuff about you that you don't even know was done. I got pictures of me in 2016 from something, if I Google my name, that it was a city event here in town. So if you don't think that your life is out there, it's out there. And if you're going to portray yourself as a professional business owner, it's a decision. You have to lose the persona of, whatever it is that you're doing out here, because it's either that's going to be your exact target audience, or you're going to lose business. And that's what I always tell people. I'm like, it doesn't matter what your personal views are, right? Your business is your business. And if you want to stay in business, you can certainly go after a certain crowd of people. If you just want to work on supercars, that's a different marketing thing, and that's a way you can do that. If you just want to be known as the mom minivan king of the world, great, market to that. But if you're marketing to, I don't know, hanging off the side of a moving truck, drinking whiskey upside down the freeway,
you're going to get that kind of clientele.
That's the clientele you're going to get, and you're going to eliminate the rest of the clientele. So,
I think that's an important point, right? Because I think a lot of guys, they want to just be themselves in every aspect of it. I have to be the real authentic me, but recognize that has a cost and or a benefit depending on how you're presenting yourself, and recognizing that you may isolate a certain segment of the market because of the way you're presenting yourself and or presenting your business. And you have to be okay with that, right? If you're all in on this side or all in on that side, you can't complain that you're not attracting a wider audience if you've marketed yourself that way, right? So it sounds like Tony Kiger and the Autobahn team, they're really looking for a professional level detailer that's focused on bringing great products, great training, great knowledge to the customer, because they are an extension of you, your trainings, and the Autobahn brand. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of the big differences with Autobahn or even Huper Optik and Edge, or other two companies, is that all of our reps actually can install. Now, whether it's filling in flat glass film or automotive tint or PPF or coatings and so forth, all of us are actual installers, not just your typical salesperson that is just there to drive a purchase or a sale and wash their hands of you kind of thing. I am the first line of contact as a sales rep. So if there is an issue or a technical question or anything in regards to that, my phone is always on day and night. Whether it's you shoot me a call, text, Facebook message, doesn't matter. I'm very easily accessible. So
that's good.
Well, and that, I think that so many people get that confused, and that, to me, that's a really simple, easy thing. Is like you said, your feelings as far as your expectations of either a distributor or an installer, they can be what they are. And I can't be upset at someone that doesn't have those expectations. That's on them. It's not my responsibility to have their feelings, but at the same time, that works in reverse, right? If like Jody said, if you're portraying yourself as the $50 detail guy and you get pissed because you don't get higher end clients, that's not their responsibility to realize who you are. It's yours. You're portraying yourself as the $50 detail guy. And I get it. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
And for me, I didn't want to have to do the soccer mom interior jobs all the time. Like I don't like having to handle that stuff. I would much rather focus on paint refinement and work on the nicer vehicles. But to do that, you have to then market it that way. You have to post those photos of those vehicles and maybe spend a little bit more time on those to be able to get that return customer and the additional clients. But I mean, that's what we marketed towards.
Yeah, like you said, you do some dealership work as well, and there's a different mentality with dealership work. There's a different expectation, right? You're not. I shouldn't say. Be careful. I say this.
You're under the gun when you're working for a dealership,
right? And depending on what brand of vehicle the dealership represents, there's a different expectation.
Because I mean, I worked for Volkswagen for 8 years. I worked for Cadillac for 4 years. I worked in-house at Porsche for 3 years. We had Mercedes, Sprinter, Smart, and Infiniti, and even within Mercedes, Cadillac, and Infiniti, they were all different clienteles, and it also depended on the age of the vehicle. If it's an older Cadillac, it was one. If it's a newer Cadillac, it's another. So
that's what I think, that you got to know your market, and that's every business, and that's where I think it detailers, you have to be a business owner, and the same rules that apply in certain other industries apply here, right? It seems like a weird contrast, but if you think about jewelry sales, you might have a $50 pair of earrings, you might have a $50,000 pair of earrings. That's a different clientele, and there's a different expectation. So you've got to know your market and know your clients to maintain them. We know people that have been in business like Prentice St. Clair in the same area for 40 years.
30 at least.
He knows his clientele. He knows their expectations, and they know what to expect.
So he's probably built that relationship with them over the years too.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they get a new car, they bring it to him. I mean, it's that simple. It's just, okay, what do we got? It's a new car. Here's the deal. Let's talk about it and move on. Whereas if you're doing something for Joe's Used Cars, that expectation is, it's a fast turnaround. It's make it look as good as you can for the price that we've set and down the road. Versus the what I would call the luxury experience at like a Porsche, an Audi, one of those type of dealerships that's a little higher end clientele. There's a different expectation. You're not going in there in your cut off jeans and, your lowriders with your butt crack hanging out. You're dressing for the part. You're more successful. You've got a collared shirt and you are presenting it as a luxury detail experience.
Well, and addressing that portion of it, just the presentation wise, I have noticed I've done 2 international trainings as well as obviously US trainings, and the difference in the students that actually attend a training. International trainings, they literally dress to the T to show up and focus the entire time versus being on their phone or texting or just goofing off. And one of the things is the availability of trainings internationally versus in the US. I think in the US we need to treat, or as a student's perspective, we need to treat it with a little bit more care and professionalism versus international trainings. They literally show up dressed nicer than us half the time. And it's shocking. I mean, they have their phone out and they're literally right up to what you're doing, recording everything, because they don't have the kind of resources that we do here in the US. Things are not as readily available and things tend to cost a lot more because it has to be imported to them. Whereas in the US, I think we just kind of take advantage of it because it's easily accessible and there's so many offerings anywhere. But in doing so, I think the care or the intake of knowledge is a bit reduced as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting commentary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and I saw that like when I was in Brazil. I went to a detail shop and it was very, all right, we have our uniform, we have our presentation. It's all built around a brand image. And I can definitely see that. And it's like, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about my experience going to the Ferrari factory. I mean, everybody was dressed in the Ferrari colors and you could tell by the role of what they were doing based on the uniform that they were wearing and where they were walking. And it just has so much power. I mean, just like you walk into that room, it's like the guys from Scotland, the couple Andy Duff.
Yeah.
I mean, they are crisp, they're sharp, they have their nice brand uniforms. And you walk in and you feel like, all right, these guys know what they're doing. They're trained. They have all of their training on the certificates on the wall. And dude, their shop just looks sharp. They're greeting me professionally, dude. All right.
It's that presentation.
Yeah.
I mean, if I walk into your shop or say that you're a new dealer of mine and I come to visit you and you're wearing a dirty, holey 3 times too large t-shirt with ripped up jeans and I'm looking around at your shop and it looks just as bad.
Yeah.
That's what the customer is seeing when they walk in your doors. So their expectation is already dropped versus going into, for instance, like I was in Bogota, Colombia last month training and every student showed up iron shirts, pressed jeans and ready to dive into it. And I was like, wow, you guys are really dialed in for this. But they have to be able to get that kind of work there as well.
Yeah. And I see people do that subconsciously. They understand it. So we a couple of years ago, we went to a training and the guy that was putting on the training was really concerned about his shop. And a couple of people made comments like, it's no big deal. We're just going to come to a training. And then when we got there, I mean, the walls were painted bright white. The ceiling was black. He had new lights installed. It looked the part. But that was a subconscious thing to him,
But he cares about it.
Right.
He cares.
That's the thing is he cares about the experience and not just the getting
the final product.
If you will. Yeah. So that's really a good point for people. So
well, Tony, this has been an awesome conversation. And is there one final recommendation that you would give to detail business owners?
Oof. Get a good CRM and know your ROIs. Like,
yes.
If you don't know what your numbers are, what are you doing?
Yep.
I mean, you can't propose or create a proposal to a customer without knowing what your expenses are. How much time is it going to take? How much product is it going to take? What is the cost of my products? What's my electric bill or water bill? So forth. And all of that can be plugged into a CRM so that it's easily done versus breaking out a piece of paper and trying to calculate it, or jumping on to an AI system and trying to type it and try to problem solve my issues. Well, if you have it built into your CRM, you can create the packages. It's easily offerable that way versus trying to just on the spot think of a number. Well, your car looks like this, so maybe I can charge you this. Well, the maybe or the hesitation now took the trust factor away. So I don't know if you're good enough for the job. I might go down the road to another shop that didn't hesitate, that had a CRM, that had a package put together for me, and they were able to either text it, email it, or call me and give me an update or on the spot provide it to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's good. And I think that's the thing is knowing where you're at, knowing your numbers, and knowing what it really costs you.
What it really
people,
costs
I think people don't take into account, like you said, the lights and the sewer bill and the water and all that. If your costs went up by 30% last year, what did you do to your prices?
Yep.
You're
well, that's the other thing is every year you need to increase your price. There is a cost of living increase every single year. Why are you not increasing your price of your services every single year? Is it because, well, this customer last year only paid X amount of dollars and they were even hesitant at that? Well, they need to understand, and you need to show value in your services, not just say, well, it's going to be $40 or $100 more this time. Well, why? You need to explain why confidently, and don't just create an argument. Explain these are the reasons why the costs have gone up. And if you would like to continue our services, this is how much it would then cost for that service. Now, keep in mind, it is always going to be the customer's opinion, whether they accept it or decline it, but that is up to them. Don't argue with them about it.
No.
Just
always for sure.
Just be there for them, but don't try to, I don't want to say don't fight to keep that customer, which you definitely want to do if they're a really good client. But you don't want to create a situation where you're forcing them to come back to you necessarily. You want them to willingly come back to you.
You want them to see the value of what you're continuing to offer them. And, if you can explain in a nice professional way, dude, people get it because their costs are going up on their side as well. So it's like, don't be afraid, and presenting that change with confidence, right? It's like when you're hemming and hawing and you're kind of hesitant, it doesn't give that confidence. And so it makes them, like you said, second guess. So just go in there with confidence, say, this is what we have to do. And these are the new services and or pricing that we have for this year. So
and the only thing I would add to that is get a mentor in the detailing industry that you can trust, that you can bounce these ideas off. Hey, Tony, we're in Idaho, you're not. This is the kind of the market. I'm thinking about raising my prices like 4%. What do you think? Bounce it off of somebody else and get some opinions. And you need to have people in the industry that are trusted advisors and friends that work with you that want you to succeed. That's key.
Well, and that's just like our last coding class. At the end of the class, we go over sales and how to approach that, and we do a little role play. And one of the students is the shop owner, so they're proposing a ceramic coating or paint refinement pricing package, and I am the customer, and I am just disputing it constantly just to see what the reaction is and can they think on their feet quickly, is there hesitation, and then what are they going to propose back at me? Is that something that I'm going to like or dislike? And I'll play the nice person, and then I'll play the person that's just argumentative, and I don't like that price. This person can do it cheaper. They said that they're the highest quality shop in town, and so forth. And because you're going to run into those customers, whether you want to work with them or not.
Yeah, that's a great exercise.
That's a good exercise. Yep. So, well, Tony, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I learned something.
My pleasure, guys.
It's been great. So, guys, if you don't know Tony, check him out on Facebook, Tony Kiger. I have the Kiger, the finer details. He's got a very recognizable brand when you go there. And remember, we do this every week. Next week's actually going to be a special edition. We have Jason Otterson, Kirk Evans. We're going to be doing it on Wednesday to accommodate Jason's training schedule. So every week we try to tap into somebody that will help your business. Thank you so much. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Any last thing from you?
Nope.
I guess. All right. Well, you guys have a great day, and we'll check you same time, same bad channel, just next week.
See you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yep.
Thank you, brother.